Right now, at this very moment, dozens of oil tankers are floating above one of the most terrifying geological time bombs on the planet. A hidden danger so massive, so unpredictable, that if it triggers, it won't just shake the ocean floor. It will shake the entire global economy overnight. And the scary part, most world leaders aren't even talking about it. Stay with me, because what I'm about to show you changes everything you thought you knew about the world's most dangerous waterway. The Strait of Hormuz. You've probably heard that name before, but most people only know half the story. Yes, it's narrow. Yes, it's politically tense. Yes, Iran and the United States have played a dangerous game of cat and mouse in those waters for decades. But beneath all of that, literally beneath the ocean floor of that strait, lies a geological structure so unstable, so loaded with pressure, that scientists who study it describe it the same way engineers describe an old bridge that's been overloaded for years. It's not a question of whether it fails, it's a question of when. And today, right here on the Professor Walter Report, we're going to go deep, and I mean really deep, into what that hidden danger actually is, why it matters more than any missile or naval fleet, and what it could mean for every single person watching this video right now. If you're new here, welcome. Hit that subscribe button right now and tap the bell, because this channel covers the stories that mainstream media glosses over. The stuff that actually moves the world. Now let's get into it. To understand what's happening beneath the Strait of Hormuz, you first need to understand where it sits on this planet. The strait is a narrow passage of water, only about 21 miles wide at its tightest point, connecting the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman, and then out to the Arabian Sea. Every single day, roughly 20 to 21 million barrels of oil pass through this corridor. That's almost 20% of the world's entire oil supply, moving through a stretch of water you could drive across in less than half an hour. Now picture that volume. Picture those massive supertankers, some of them nearly a quarter-mile long, slowly navigating these waters every day, every night, rain or shine, tension or no tension. And they're all floating above a geological zone that sits at the collision point of three major tectonic plates: the Arabian Plate, the Eurasian Plate, and the smaller Makran subduction zone plate. This isn't just background geology. This is active, living, grinding, shifting geology happening right now beneath the surface. The Makran subduction zone is the key player here, and it's the one that keeps geologists up at night. Subduction zones are areas where one tectonic plate slides beneath another. They are responsible for some of the most powerful earthquakes ever recorded in human history. The 2004 Indian Ocean earthquake that caused the devastating tsunami, killing over 200,000 people, that was a subduction zone event. The 2011 Tohoku earthquake in Japan that triggered the Fukushima nuclear disaster, also a subduction zone. Now here's the thing about the Makran subduction zone specifically. It has been unusually quiet. And in geology, quiet doesn't mean safe. Quiet means pressure is building. The Arabian Plate is pushing northward at about 4 centimeters per year, which doesn't sound like much until you realize that pressure has been accumulating for centuries along fault lines that haven't fully released their stress. Scientists have documented that the last major rupture along this zone happened in 1945, producing a magnitude 8.1 earthquake and a localized tsunami that hit the coastlines of Pakistan, Iran, and Oman. That was over 80 years ago. In geological terms, the clock is running. Now let's talk about what a major seismic event in this region would actually look like in practice, not in theory. In practice. First, the immediate physical impact. A significant earthquake along the Makran subduction zone, one in the range of magnitude 8 or higher, could generate a tsunami capable of hitting the coastal areas surrounding the Persian Gulf within minutes to hours. The geography of the Persian Gulf actually amplifies this danger because it's a shallow, semi-enclosed body of water. When tsunami waves enter a confined space like that, they don't dissipate. They bounce, they stack, and they get taller. Port infrastructure across the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Saudi Arabia could face wave impacts unlike anything those nations have engineered for. And remember, these aren't just shipping ports. These are oil export terminals, liquefied natural gas facilities, and desalination plants that provide drinking water to millions of people in some of the driest places on Earth. But the damage doesn't stop at the shoreline. Let's talk about the underwater infrastructure, because beneath the waters of the Persian Gulf, there are thousands of kilometers of underwater pipelines, fiber optic cables, and subsea oil and gas installations. A major seismic event doesn't just shake the surface. It can shift the seabed itself, rupturing pipelines, damaging wellheads, and creating what engineers call a debris field on the ocean floor. Some of these pipelines carry crude oil and natural gas. A rupture doesn't just mean an economic disruption, it means an environmental catastrophe on a scale that would take decades to address. The oil spill from the Deepwater Horizon disaster in 2010 was considered one of the worst in history, and that was a single wellhead. Now imagine multiple simultaneous ruptures across a geologically active zone with no immediate way to shut them all down. And then comes the global economic shockwave. Here's where the Professor Walter report connects the dots that other channels miss. The Strait of Hormuz is not just a shipping lane. It is the central nervous system of global energy supply. If that strait is disrupted even for a week, the ripple effects are immediate and violent. Oil prices spike. Shipping insurance rates skyrocket. Airlines, manufacturers, farmers, logistics companies, all of them start absorbing higher costs that eventually land on the consumer. Your grocery bill, your gas pump, your heating bill in winter. Every single cost tied to energy moves when Hormuz moves. Now imagine not a week of disruption, but months. Reconstruction of port infrastructure, repair of underwater pipelines, restoration of export terminals. These are not quick fixes. Engineers estimate that major subsea infrastructure damage could take anywhere from 6 months to 2 years to fully restore. During that time, global oil markets would be operating in a state of permanent emergency. There's also the geopolitical dimension that makes this even more complicated. The countries surrounding the Persian Gulf are not exactly in a stable cooperative relationship. Iran, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, each of these nations has its own interests, its own military presence, and its own political calculations. In the immediate aftermath of a major geological disaster, the coordination required to manage a humanitarian crisis, an environmental disaster, and an infrastructure emergency simultaneously would be extraordinarily difficult. History has shown us repeatedly that natural disasters in politically tense regions often create power vacuums, resource conflicts, and misinformation battles that complicate recovery efforts. Who controls the cleanup? Who gets access to salvage the damaged infrastructure first? Who pays for the repairs? These are not simple questions when you have nations that can barely agree on diplomatic communication under normal circumstances. Now you might be asking, are governments actually preparing for this? The honest answer is, some are, but not nearly enough. The United Arab Emirates and Qatar have invested in some of the most advanced port engineering in the world, partly because they understand their geography. Saudi Aramco, the largest oil company on the planet, has internal risk assessments that factor in geological events. But the coordination between nations, the shared early warning systems, the international emergency response protocols specifically designed for a Hormuz geological event, these are still dangerously underdeveloped. The United States Geological Survey and international seismological bodies have published research flagging the Makran subduction zone as a high-priority monitoring concern. But monitoring is very different from preparing, and preparing is very different from being ready. There's also an element here that almost nobody discusses, and that's the psychological risk factor. The financial markets that price oil futures, the shipping companies that route their tankers, the insurance underwriters who calculate premiums. All of them are working with models that assume human-driven disruption, sanctions, military conflict, political crises. Very few of those models are seriously stress-tested against a major natural geological event in the Hormuz region. Which means that when and if it happens, the market reaction won't just reflect the physical disruption, it will reflect the complete surprise of institutions that never truly priced in the geological risk. Panic selling, emergency policy interventions, central bank emergency meetings, all of that gets layered on top of an already chaotic physical situation. Let's take a step back for a moment and look at the bigger picture, because this story is not just about oil or economics or even geopolitics. It's about how human civilization has built an extraordinary amount of dependency on an extraordinarily small and vulnerable geography. The Strait of Hormuz, at its narrowest, is 21 miles wide. The most seismically active zone runs directly beneath and adjacent to it. And through that narrow corridor, the modern world has routed nearly a fifth of its entire energy supply with very limited redundancy and very limited geological risk planning. There are alternative routes. The east-west pipeline across Saudi Arabia can carry some volume. The Habshan-Fujairah pipeline in the UAE was specifically built to bypass the strait, but none of these alternatives come close to handling the full volume that currently moves through Hormuz. In a genuine geological emergency, the world would be short millions of barrels per day with no fast solution available. This is the hidden danger that sits beneath the headlines, beneath the naval standoffs, beneath the sanctions discussions. It's not a missile. It's not a political crisis. It's the planet itself, moving on its own timeline, indifferent to oil markets and diplomatic cables and military strategy. The Earth doesn't negotiate. It doesn't send warnings through back channels. It builds pressure for centuries and then releases it all at once. So what does this mean for you? It means the world needs honest conversations about geological risk in a way that our political and economic institutions are not currently having. It means that energy diversification isn't just about climate change or oil politics. It's also about geological vulnerability. It means that the next time you hear someone talking about the stability or instability of the Middle East, the conversation should include not just what's happening on the surface, but what's happening 4, 10, 20 kilometers beneath it. If this video made you think differently about the Strait of Hormuz, about geological risk, about how fragile global supply chains really are, I want to know. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think governments are doing enough to prepare for this kind of scenario? And if you know someone who follows geopolitics, energy markets, or global economics, share this video with them right now. Because this is the kind of information that needs to move beyond just one audience. More people knowing means more pressure on the right institutions to take this seriously. Until next time, this is the Professor Walter Report. Stay informed, stay ahead, and never stop asking the deeper questions.